welcome back to my channel. It is October 21st, which means that we only have 10 days left to finish everything that is on my fall TBR, which is definitely going to be a challenge. Let me give you a little update on where I'm at. It's a little bit ambitious. I am currently in the middle of these 3 books on my fall TBR: Wicked by Gregory Maguire, Miracles by C.S. Lewis, and Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And you guys obviously already knew that I was in the middle of Wicked and also knew that I was in the middle of Sherlock Holmes. And I might have mentioned in a previous vlog that I started Miracles, but I don't quite remember. But anyway, I'm currently reading all 3 of these books simultaneously. The ambitious part is not necessarily reading 3 books at the same time, but it's going to be reading 3 books very quickly at the same time, because in addition to these 3, I still have these 2 books left on my fall TBR that I have not even started. We have Six of Crows and then The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. 10 days to read 5 books is a lot, even if I don't have all of the books to go from start to finish. So here's the plan. For Wicked, I only have 110-ish pages left. So I'm going to try to get as much of this read as possible today, though I'm not sure I'm going to finish it today because I also will be reading 2 chapters from Miracles by C.S. Lewis. If I read 2 chapters a day in this book, then I will finish this book on like the 28th or something like that. So we will be able to finish this one in October. But also, I have been reading 1 short story a day for about a month in this Sherlock Holmes series, and I am pretty far in. I'm over 600 pages into this book so far. It's really nice that they're all short stories because I don't have to try to remember what happened previously, because each thing is completely new, and each short story right now is only about 20 pages, so it makes it very, very doable. But if I read 2 short stories in this book every day instead of 1, then I will finish this book on October 31st. Right under the wire, but it's definitely possible if I continue to read 2 short stories in this every day. At least 40 pages of this and probably about 20 pages of this, and then 110 pages of this is quite a feat. And it's very ambitious for what time I'm starting today and the other things that I have to do today, but we are going to try our best. But that's why I don't think that I'm necessarily going to be finishing Wicked today, though I'm going to try my best to get as far as possible. Hopefully tomorrow I will only have like 20 or 30 pages left of this book. And then, of course, I'll still have my 2 chapters to read in Miracles and my 2 short stories to read in Sherlock. But we will also be starting Six of Crows. I am so excited to get back into fantasy again. I know technically Wicked is a fantasy, but to be honest, I am not loving Wicked as much as I thought that I would. Since I only have like 110 pages left, it's going to be really gratifying to check one of the 5 books that I have left to finish on my fall TBR off very quickly, especially since the other 2 that I'm in the middle of, I'm still going to be reading for at least another week. Circling back around to Six of Crows, the goal is to finish Wicked tomorrow so that I can start Six of Crows. I am so excited to get into fantasy. I know people really, really love this book and this world, and I also know that the Shadow and Bone trilogy is before the Six of Crows duology. But to be completely honest, I'm not necessarily interested in reading Shadow and Bone, at least not at this time. So we're just going to skip ahead and read Six of Crows. I am just excited that it's a fantasy because I think the last fantasy book that I truly, really loved was Fourth Wing. I really liked Assistant to the Villain. I don't know if I would go as far to say that I loved it, but definitely Fourth Wing was the last one that I really, really loved. So anyway, so that just leaves The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo as our straggler book. And that is exactly what it's going to be. I am not going to be pushing myself to finish this book and Six of Crows and the 3 other books in the 10 days. I'm going to try to push myself for the other 4 books. And then this book is going to be a little bit like, if I get to it, I get to it. If I don't get to it, then it's not that big of a deal. If you remember, I added 1 extra book to my TBR just to be a little bit ambitious. So technically, we are finishing everything on the plan TBR, and it's just the straggler book that is getting left behind. But that is the plan. So I'm going to start off by reading probably my 2 chapters of Miracles or Sherlock Holmes, and I will keep you guys updated on how I like each one of the books as I'm going through them, especially Wicked, since we're going to be finishing that one soon. Okay, I have a couple little updates for you guys. I finished Wicked last night. Can you tell by my face how I feel about the book? This was not good. I have very serious qualms with this book. It's not very good. I don't know how someone read this book and saw an amazing Broadway show out of it. The character development is not there. It's not as good. The story is like 90% fluff and about characters and from characters' point of view who we literally don't really care about. Elfie is like a side character in this book. It's a book about her life, and she literally is the character that I know the least about her personality. Tell me how that makes sense. It doesn't make sense. That's why. This book is not worth the read, in my opinion. It is overhyped. The first part was so weird. I was just trying to get through it. Then the second part when she's at Shiz and the third part where she's in the Emerald City were pretty good. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And then we got to part 4 and it was just a whole bunch of crazy fluff and monotony and didn't really add to the plot at all. 2.25 stars is my rating. I felt like there were so many things that he tried to make a big deal that he never actually followed through with connecting it to the story or showing us why it was a big deal. There was a mention of a lot of characters who, some of them didn't even ever show up. We were supposed to just kind of know who they were. And there was a lot of ones you got a whole bunch of information about who they were and why they were important, and then they would just disappear from the story and they would never return. I don't think I've rated a book this low or been so frustrated with a book in a while. It's been since A Court of Silver Flames, I think. You don't want to be compared to A Court of Silver Flames in my library. I need to stop talking about this book because I will ramble on about how much it annoyed me forever. So we're going to move on. Needless to say, I am now so excited to be done with that book and moving on to something a little bit more enjoyable, which is Six of Crows. I'm excited to get into a book where it's not all fluff, where there's an actual intricately developed plot. I'm excited to get into a book where I actually would like the characters, hypothetically, and I'm excited to get into a series that I may actually want to continue. I also have been continuing to make progress on Sherlock Holmes and on Miracles, so I think that's all the updates I have for you right now. I will let you guys know what I think about the book when I get a little bit more into it. Okay, friends, I have an update for you guys. I started Six of Crows last night and I made it only through the first chapter because I still had to read my chapters in Miracles and in Sherlock Holmes. And one of last night's chapters was really, really long. Let me get the Sherlock Holmes book. This was not originally what I came on here to tell you guys, but I want to anyway because I'm really excited about it. I am on the short story, The Final Problem, in this Sherlock Holmes series. And if you have watched the BBC Sherlock, then you know which episode The Final Problem is. Yeah, so in this next short story, the first one that we're going to read today is The Final Problem, and we get to meet Moriarty. So I'm interested to see what 1800s Moriarty was like. In this one, he's Professor Moriarty, not just plain old Moriarty. So I'm excited to see what the original Final Problem was. So that was just a little sidetrack. That's not what I came on here to say. I wanted to talk about Six of Crows because I was so excited to start this book last night, and I read the first chapter and I was like, okay, I got this. But then I woke up this morning and I felt really, really hesitant. I was just like, wait a minute, what if I'm making a mistake? What if I should read the Shadow and Bone trilogy first? I don't know if this is just like the completionist part of myself that's talking, or if it's like, I don't know. I just started doubting myself and doubting my decision to skip over the Shadow and Bone trilogy and to read this first. I've heard from so many people, like, you don't have to read Shadow and Bone first. You can go straight into Six of Crows. And this book is so highly rated. And so I was so excited to get into it because I feel like one of the reasons why people love this series is that they go into it having already read Shadow and Bone, which they don't like as much as Six of Crows, but they're already familiar with the world and how it works. Whereas I'm going to have to figure that out with this book, and it's probably not going to explain it as well because it already set up the world in the Shadow and Bone series. So I'm kind of thinking that we're not going to be reading this because I really want to read the Shadow and Bone series. I honestly just want to swap out Six of Crows for Shadow and Bone. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think the whole trilogy is on Kindle Unlimited. Shadow and Bone, Shadow and Bone. Okay, it is. It's on Kindle Unlimited. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to download Shadow and Bone from Kindle Unlimited, and we are going to read Shadow and Bone in place of Six of Crows. Oh no, I don't have enough space. I have too many things downloaded. I have to choose one to give back, but Okay, I don't want to return any of the titles I have right now because it's almost like my little Kindle TBR that I am attached to, even though I don't own the books. So here's what we're going to do. I am like 78% of the way done. No, I'm 80. I am 80% of the way done with the book Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. So what we're going to do is we are going to finish Life's Too Short right now. We're going to sit down. We're just going to read it. That way we can return it to Kindle Unlimited and I can download Shadow and Bone and we can start reading that. And we will finish that book by the end of October. Today is October. Hey, Google, what's today's date?
It's Thursday, October 24th, 2024.
It is October 24th. So we have plenty of time to get through the Shadow and Bone book. I don't think that they're necessarily super long books. And I tend to read faster on my Kindle. So that's the new plan. We're updating. We are going to put Six of Crows back. And we're not going to read it until after we finish the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I can't believe, I honestly, last night when I went to bed, I had zero intentions of doing this. But I woke up and I just couldn't do it. So random. I'm happy that Shadow and Bone is on Kindle Unlimited. That way I can just go ahead and jump right into it. I just finished Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. It was good. It was definitely my favorite book in the Friend Zone series, though it definitely doesn't match her other stories, especially Just for the Summer. That one's my absolute favorite, but yours truly is really good too. Anyway, it's literally only been like maybe 15 minutes since I've talked to you guys. It has not been very long at all. It said that I had like 20% of this book left, but apparently the last like 15% is like a group reading guide thing. So the actual book, I literally only had like 3 chapters left. Yeah, I finished it like really, really quick, which is great because now I can return it to Kindle Unlimited and start Shadow and Bone right away. And I'll be able to get much more of a head start on it. I honestly didn't think that I would be starting it within like 20 minutes of updating you guys that I was going to do that. So anyway, let's download Shadow and Bone and get started on it. I have a few quick updates for you guys. We are getting down to the wire. It is October 27th. I have not read that much the past couple days. It's been very, very chaotic, and I'm not really sure how it snuck up on me like that. So I didn't get a ton read, but I am 30-something% of the way through Shadow and Bone. Let's see. I'm 33% of the way through Shadow and Bone. And so far, I actually am liking it way more than I thought that I would. It's nothing that's like amazing or like the most creative or in-depth fantasy that I've ever read, but it's exactly what I'm in the mood for. Just like something that, how do I describe it? I was in the mood for a fantasy, but maybe not one that I had to like really delve in like super deep in order to understand what was going on. Just something that was like light and fun and was entertaining to read. And that is exactly what Shadow and Bone is, at least so far. And since I'm reading it on my Kindle, I didn't read a blurb about what it's about. So even though I'm 33% of the way in, I have absolutely no idea what the synopsis said or if that gave any clues to what it's about. But what I know so far is there is this girl and she is studying to be a map maker, I think, and her best friend were raised in a Duke's household and they were orphans, and they both went into the military in order to create a life for themselves. And one day they were assigned to go through what's called the Unsea, which is basically like this part of the country where it is like completely black, like you can't see anything in front of you, but they don't light lights when they go through because they try to sneak through because there's like creatures in there that will eat you. But they have to go through the Unsea in order to trade with other countries because their coastline is on the other side of that. So they're going through the Unsea and there's this like crazy blast of like light and all the flying creatures, they're like scared away and all that kind of stuff. And it turns out that in this world, there's these things called, I think they're called Grishnas or Grishas. And they're basically like wizards or sorceresses or like whatever. Like there are people who are born with magical powers and they help defend the country or make the country better depending on what their magical powers are. So typically you're only trained in like one or two things. So some people have healing ability, some people have, gosh, I don't remember what all of them are. Anyway, turns out that our main girl is the one that created the sun thing that scared away all the monsters, and she is a Grishna, but she had no idea. And like everyone's tested as children to see if they are one of these people with powers, and she was tested and nothing showed up. So anyway, she gets taken away and she's going to be starting her training to actually become one of these people like fully soon, because apparently her power is like special and rare and maybe it could undo the Unsea, which would be really cool. So anyway, that's where I'm at in the book. I hope that wasn't too much of a spoilers for you guys, but I don't know what to spoil and what's not because I didn't read the back of the book because it was on my Kindle. I'm liking it. I don't necessarily think it's going to be something that I rant and rave about. I'm having a really good time reading it, and that's really all you can ask for from a book most of the time. So that is Shadow and Bone. Sherlock, we're just kind of doing the same old thing. So I'm on page 807 of this book, and there's over 1,000 pages. So I only have like 200 and something pages left. And then last but definitely not least, last night I decided that the only thing that I needed to do was to make sure that I finished the books on my TBR. So I went ahead and just finished Miracles. I only had like 3 or 4 chapters left, so it was pretty easy to just continue going on through. I really like C.S. Lewis's writing, and I like the way that he goes about critically thinking about the world around him. If you're not used to C.S. Lewis's writing, he's not as straightforward as some modern authors are when they're confronting problems. It's not even necessarily that he beats around the bush, but like the way he phrases it, it doesn't feel like he's attacking the problem head on. I enjoyed it. I am a huge fan of C.S. Lewis, so anything that's written by him, I love to read. But that's pretty much all I have to say about this. It's one of those books where it's a little bit hard to explain what it's about besides just the general concept that it's about miracles. If you like C.S. Lewis or you like his writing, or it's a topic that you are curious about, then I would definitely pick up this book. But that is the last book in this collection of C.S. Lewis books. So I can put this one on the shelf as completely read, which is so satisfying. Anyway, I think I'm going to rate it probably a 4-star. I did really enjoy it, and I love C.S. Lewis's writing style. So yeah, that's Miracles. So we have one more book checked off for the fall TBR, which is so great, which means the only ones that are left are Sherlock Holmes, of course, Shadow and Bone, which is replacing Six of Crows, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is down there on my bookshelf, and I don't necessarily feel like going to get right now. At this point, since we only have 4 days left in the challenge, I think I'm going to officially drop girl with the dragon tattoo. That's just not going to happen. It's just going to go back on the shelf and we'll see when I get to it next. That is all the updates that I have. I have to leave here in a few minutes, but I'm going to see if I can get through at least one Sherlock story before I go. Good morning. Last night I finished Shadow and Bone. I like this book more probably because of the timing in which I read it and less because I actually like the story in itself. I was so done after Wicked. I was a little bit scared that I was going to go into a reading slump, but picking up Shadow and Bone kind of stopped me from going into a reading slump where I just did not want to read at all. So one, that shows you how much I really did not enjoy Wicked, and then two, it shows you how much I really love just a nice happy fantasy, because I think the story is fine, but I don't necessarily know if I understand why it was like quite as hyped as maybe some other books. I think I would give this 3 stars maybe. We'll go with 3.25 just because I was excited to get back into the book when I put it down. The thing about this author's writing is that some of her plot twists were so sudden that like I didn't see them coming. And I personally really enjoyed that because once you start to read a lot of popular fantasy, you start to see the patterns and the cookie cutter recipe that a lot of fantasy authors use in order to have a really high selling fantasy. And this one had some of those aspects in it, but it wasn't quite as cookie cutter as I feel like other ones were. Honestly, this book, after reading Wicked, was just a breath of fresh air. That's the best way that I can describe how I felt about this book. It's not something I'm in love with, but it was refreshing to read after reading a book that I really just didn't enjoy at all. So that is it for Shadow and Bone. That leaves us with Sherlock Holmes. This is the last book on my fall TBR. I have already put Girl with the Dragon Tattoo back. We are not getting into it. It is October 30th, so we have today and tomorrow to finish this book. I have 5.5 short stories left, so about 130-ish pages. I'm determined to finish this today. I want to finish it today. I want to get it done, and I want to just bask on tomorrow and be like,
I did it. I finished my fall TBR.
A couple thoughts on the Sherlock book before we get into it. I love this book. You guys know how much I love this book, how much I love Sherlock. I love the series on BBC. I love these stories, even though they're very clearly outdated. That being said, after reading Sherlock Holmes consistently for over a month and reading this 1,056 page chunky book, I'm kind of ready to not be reading Sherlock Holmes anymore. And that doesn't mean that I'm not enjoying it while I'm reading it. It just means that like I'm getting to the point where if I don't finish soon, I'm not going to be enjoying myself anymore. So that's the main reason why I want to try to finish this today. We are going to sit down and try to read a few of the short stories now, and then we'll come back later and finish it later tonight. But yeah, today's the last day. We're going to do it today. I'm so excited. Let's get into it. It is officially Halloween, October 31st, and I finished the Sherlock Holmes Volume 1 last night, which means I did it. The fall TBR is complete. And as much fun as my fall TBR was, I am also quite ready to move on to some other books. My final rating for the Sherlock Holmes Volume 1 is a 4.5 stars. I loved this. This was just a book that, even though it was so long, but it was really good. If you like Sherlock and you have not read the actual original stories, then I definitely recommend it. I had such a fun time. Maybe just don't set out to read the entire thing in about a month. It was a lot. Maybe space it out a little bit because, like I said, I was a little bit done. I was ready to move on from these kind of stories by the end of it, but it was amazing. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I have a lot of fun plans for November videos, so subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know exactly when those come out. It is going to be such a blast. I am looking forward to those books so much, but I will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining me on this little adventure, and I will see you guys next time.